Contrary to media claims, deporting illegal alien criminals will save taxpayers more than it costs. I mean, if you use logic, you use reasoning, you would definitely come to that conclusion because we're shelling out billions of dollars for them. We're paying for their housing, paying for their schooling, paying for their food, paying all of that stuff. That stuff adds up. It's a lot more than just taking them and sending them back where they came from. I mean, it's logic, but we're gonna talk about it. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things that I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram and my X account, so follow me there as well. All right, so let's get into this news. Now, this comes from the Federalist, and they report that in testimony before the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, American Immigration Council, or AIC, senior fellow Aaron Reichlin Melnick remarked last week that mass deportations would cost, quote, at minimum $316 billion. The AIC estimates that there is an annual cost of $88 billion to deport 1 million illegal aliens each year. That breaks down to $7 billion for arrests, $66 billion for detentions, $12.6 billion to go through the legal process, and $2.1 billion to transport deportees out of the country. It works to $88,000 per deportee, but the council claims that this is, quote, highly conservative estimate. They concluded there is a total cost of $967.9 billion over the course of more than a decade. But looking at the per deportee cost over recent years show a cost that is less than 1/6 of what the AIC estimates. Advocacy organizations such as AIC are out to create shock value numbers, of course. News media outlets covered the $88 billion estimate extensively when they were released in October, shortly before the election. The AIC figures were cited uncritically in the New York Times, of course, USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, and Newsweek, as well as ABC, CBS, and CNN. Another estimate AIC put out, this one-time $316 billion cost of deporting 13 million that was not reported by the media when they put out their report in October comes at a minimum of $24,231 per deportee. While President Trump says that there is no price tag too high for deporting illegal aliens, costs are sure to factor into American public support. The numbers don't include ongoing government subsidies for food and housing, so the additional cost for housing might be less than $66 billion, AIC claims. The AIC's estimate depend on a lot of assumptions. Take their estimated cost of detention, which account for 3/4 of their total estimate. To deport 1 million people in a year doesn't mean that you have to have enough detention facilities to house 1 million people for an entire year. That's a fact. Even if you take AIC's claim that people will be detained for a little under 2 months on average, that means you would only have to house about 167,000 at any point in time. Others put the average detention time at around a month, so you only have to build facilities to house 83,000. And according to AIC, we already have the facilities necessary to house 41,500. And then we got Texas jumping in saying they're going to give the federal government some land to use as well. But the AIC assumes each facility holds 500 beds, so 83 new facilities will have to be built. With each facility costing $35.91 million, that comes to a cost of $3 billion, a fraction of the $66 billion. Of course, they're going to overpromise. The problem with the AIC numbers is even worse than that because they must rebuild 216 completely new facilities each and every year, but that isn't necessary as these facilities will last for years. Again, logic, common sense. They also assume that the daily cost of detaining an individual is $237 and a family is $482. In the United States in 2022, the daily cost for prisoners in federal medium security prisons is $122.50, and for high security prisons, $164.87. Private operated institutions for federal prisons are only $93.50 per a day per capita. Other estimates may already be obsolete, such as how long illegals will be detained in custody before being deported, even if they were ever correct. The length of detention depends on the home countries taking back these illegals. But President Donald Trump is now promising that, quote, we won't do business with those countries that refuse to take back these migrants. So these countries are going to take them back because they want to do business with the United States. Who doesn't want to do business with the United States? Instead of guessing numbers like how much it costs for the government to rent a plane and how many passengers will be on it or how long individuals are detained, we can try to come up with our own much simpler estimate by looking at U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, budget for enforcement of removal operations. Then we can compare it to the number of illegal aliens that ICE deported. ICE budget doesn't include legal process costs, but it also overestimates the cost to the extent that it includes some enforcement costs related to customs. Compare the enforcement and removal operations budget available from 2015 to 2022 with the Immigration Enforcement Actions Annual Flow Report. The 2023 Annual Enforcement Actions Report isn't yet available. To be conservative on these costs, we exclude expulsions due to COVID using Title 42, which average about 794,000 people from 2020 to 2022. While ICE spent on removing Title 42 deportees, these deportations are fairly inexpensive and will not occur in the future. Including these removals greatly reduce the per person expulsion costs. For example, 88% of the deportations during the Biden administration's first 2 years occurred using Title 42. Deportations have clearly fallen over time. Yearly deportations during Bill Clinton averaged 1,536,363. George W. Bush's administrations had 1,255,779. Under Obama, there were 656 1,112. Trump had 448,852, and Biden carried out 316,953. These figures exclude expulsions due to COVID. For 2015 to 2022, per capita deportation costs in 2024 dollars average $12,124. They average from 9,767 under Obama to 11,637 for Trump and 15,499 for Biden. The higher numbers for Biden occurred as the budget rose, but the number of deportations excluding Title 49 fell significantly. AIC claims that the legal process costs are 2,570. If we just assume that their estimates is correct, it raises the total per capita cost of deportation to $14,705. But even this is too high for several reasons, including the fact that 1.46 million illegals have already had their deportations approved by U.S. Department of Justice immigration judges. Even if we include the entire immigration and customs enforcement budget, which involves many other customs activities, the per deportee cost from 2002 to 2022 average $13,706 and $2024. This year, with the most deportations, 2004 saw 1.4 million deportees with the total ICE budget in 2024 dollars of $6.1 billion or 4,354 per detainee. There you have it there. Those are actual real numbers, not some estimate made up by the AIC. Administrations with more deportations have lower per deportee costs due to economies of scale. Um, if Trump really does plan on carrying out large scale deportations, the cost for each person may be far lower than during his first administration. These numbers also assume that the policies of sanctuary cities and states remain unchanged. Still, after Trump border czar Tom Homan threatened to put Denver Mayor Michael Johnson in jail after the mayor claimed he was willing to go to jail to protect the illegal aliens, Johnson appeared to backtrack on his promise. If sanctuary cities start assisting the federal government deportation efforts, the cost might also come down. These conservative estimates are less than 1/6 to 1/7 the per deportee estimate of the AIC. But we all know that whole estimate is bloated to make it look bad, to make it look expensive. We all know this. Another estimate A1C put out is a one-time cost of $316 billion to deport 13 million, which wasn't reported by the media when they released their report in October, of course. That comes to, at minimum, 24,231 per deportee, and shows the sensitivity of their estimates. But even that is roughly twice the estimate provided here. In September, the deputy director for ICE noted that the 7.4 million non-detained non-citizens with pending cases that were released into the United States, 662,566 have criminal record. Our estimates indicate that it would cost about $8 billion to arrest and deport these criminals. By contrast, if these illegal aliens commit a crime resembling the most serious crime that they have previously been convicted or charged with, the victimization costs amount to at least $166.5 billion. That's a lot more than $8 billion, right? Is my math correct there? But the National Institute of Justice estimated that the cost to victims, by including medical bills, lost wages, social victim services, property loss damage, police, fire, service costs, and pain and suffering, the cost of crime are roughly at least 21 times higher than deportation costs. When the AIC cost estimates are 6 to 7 times higher than the per deportee costs that we have actually observed over the last decade, you would hope people would be skeptical. Unfortunately, the news media only too willing to uncritically repeat their claims. Of course, this is par for the course for the mainstream media. If it's against their narrative, they're gonna, if it's with their narrative, they're gonna report on it. If it's against their narrative, they're not gonna report on it. You think they're gonna talk about what we just talked about here? The mainstream media is not gonna talk about it. They're gonna treat it as if it is the Hunter Biden laptop, and they're gonna continue to cite the AIC. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.